There's a sort of Rube Goldberg or Heath Robinson quality to it, where behind the scenes, one part of the system says, the sky is brown, and then another part of the system goes, shut up, you idiot!
The AI fix a digital zoo. Smart machines, what will they do? Flies to Mars or bake a bad cake? World domination, a silly mistake. Bots with brains and wires.
Hello and welcome to episode 18 of the AI Fix, your weekly dive headfirst into the bizarre and sometimes downright mind-boggling world of artificial intelligence. My name's Mark Stockley.
And I'm Graham Cluley.
Graham, we've had some feedback.
Love a bit of feedback.
Bostian Chades, I had to go to ChatGPT to find out how to pronounce that, so apologies on behalf of ChatGPT if that's not right. Bostian Chades wrote in to ask if I was wrong to refer to self-driving cars as driverless cars in my recent story about Waymo taxis, because, as he points out, his 20-year-old car is driverless whenever he's not in it. So what do you think?
Well, what I think is wait until his car gets stolen and then tell us it's driverless when he's not in it. We need to get the wording right. So maybe what we need to do is we need to ask an AI. What's he saying we should be calling it? Self-driving cars or something?
Autonomous cars or self-driving cars. So I did actually ask an AI. I asked Gemini and I asked ChatGPT, and they both agree with me.
Oh, okay. So driverless car is fine.
Driverless car is fine. We had another bit of feedback as well from Łukasz Jakob Bonik, who wrote to us. Again, ChatGPT told me how to pronounce that.
Our listeners have the most wonderful names in the world.
They do, don't they? Anyway, Łukasz wrote to us to share his experience of using LinkedIn. Basically, I think he wanted to fess up to say that he uses the LinkedIn AI to help him write his LinkedIn posts.
Ah.
But it wasn't so much what he said as how he said it, because he used an AI to rewrite his email as a Viking saga.
A Viking saga.
I don't have the voice to do this justice, so I went to 11 Labs and I've recorded his email using the voice we use for World of the Weird. So have a listen.
Hear ye, my fellow podcasters.
Oh my.
A tale of LinkedIn, a land of artifice and self-promotion.
Very impressive.
Though I despise its shallow waters, I cannot deny its utility in the hunt for a new calling.
Not only do we have listeners with the coolest names, we've also got listeners with the coolest AI voices.
My LinkedIn profile, though crafted with the aid of ancient runes and the wisdom of the digital age, was a vessel that carried my tale to those who sought to hear it. Some may scoff at my use of such modern magic, but I say, let those who fear change remain in the shadows.
So anyway, that's the bar now. If you're going to send us feedback, nothing less than a Viking saga will do. Feedback. Shall we do some news?
ChatGPT is awful at diagnosing medical conditions.
OpenAI's advanced voice mode is finally out. Or is it?
Celebrities fall for goodbye Meta AI hoax.
Google has released 2 new versions of Gemini 1.5.
Firm clones YouTuber's voice without permission to make their videos more popular.
And it's all change at OpenAI.
So Mark, OpenAI, all change you say? Sam Altman left, has he? Again?
He's the only one left. CTO Myra Marathi says she's leaving OpenAI to do her own exploration. Chief Research Officer's leaving, and so is the Research VP Barrett Zoff. So the latest departures are all happening at a time when OpenAI is said to be restructuring as a for-profit company, which it's not supposed to be. And Sam Altman is rumoured to be getting a 7% stake, which would be more money than God.
So good news for Sam Altman, not such good news for the rest of the staff as they do their own explorations, which presumably are going to be into their bank accounts.
I'm sure they'll be okay. Okay, this one's a few weeks old, but you're getting so excited last week about doctors using ChatGPT, I thought you'd enjoy this. So a recent study, it came out a couple of months ago, found that ChatGPT 3.5's medical diagnosis accuracy was a little worse than a coin toss.
Oh.
So it was tested on 150 case studies that included patient histories, the results of physical exams, imagery, and it had to choose from 4 possible answers, and it was correct 49% of the time.
Well, that's quite impressive. If you have a multiple choice with 4 answers,
yeah,
when it's doing quite well. When I went to school, I'd have been quite happy with that result when I was just randomly ticking one of the boxes. That's not so bad, is it?
I'm going to ask you how happy you are with that next time you go to your doctor. If I tell you there's a 50% chance your doctor's dead wrong.
It could speed up waiting lists and things like that in the NHS. I mean, if we just simply had a bunch of doctors flicking a coin, making life and death decisions. Oh, which leg do we have to cut off? Is it the right one or the left one? So we heard the other week about LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And just as with LinkedIn, users of Instagram and Facebook, they are up in arms. Oh my goodness, they're revolting over the thought that social media companies are trawling through their posts to train AI systems. And what can be done about this? Well, one thing you could do is you could have what I would call a viral protest. And that's what's happening on Instagram and Facebook, something called Goodbye Meta AI. Hundreds of thousands of people are posting a message to their feeds, opting out of the AI data hoover up. All you have to do, it turns out, Mark, is post a message on Facebook and Instagram saying, Goodbye Meta AI. Please note, an attorney has advised us to put this on your platform, and all other members must post a similar statement if they feel the same. If you don't post at least this once, it will be assumed you're okay with them using your information and photos. It says very explicitly, I do not give Meta or anyone else permission to use any of my personal data, profile information, or photos. So people are just posting this up and they're opting out of Meta AI. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? I mean, that sounds wonderful, doesn't it?
Well, that's a brilliant system.
It is a brilliant system, other than it doesn't actually work.
Oh.
Yeah, so it turns out...
Are you saying I'm not going to get my $50 million from Bill Gates as well?
That's right. And you're also not going to inherit a fortune from a Nigerian prince. Unfortunately, even a Meta spokesperson told the BBC, sharing this story does not count as a valid form of objection. I think it does count as an objection. It's just not one they're paying any attention to. So it turns out it has no legal value whatsoever. Now, celebrities have been pouring diesel onto this fire, helping to spread the hoax even further. Celebrities like James McAvoy and Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. And this isn't the first time hoaxes like this have spread. For instance, back in June, Kristen Bell, she's in The Good Place, if you've ever seen that TV show.
Yeah.
She posted a similar message saying she owned the copyright to her images and posts that she makes on Instagram. She doesn't consent to Meta using them for AI. However, what do you know? Because Kristen Bell has just been confirmed as one of the celebrities who will voice Meta's AI. So it appears the dollar has won her over, and now she's in the really good place of having an inflated bank account.
Well, now she can get the AI to not consent for her in her own voice.
That's quite possible, yeah. She doesn't even have to bother.
I think there's also something very, very delicious in 21st century about people going onto these platforms to complain about these platforms. Do you not know how these platforms work? All of these posts that you've made saying, I don't consent to Meta AI reading my posts have now been read by Meta's AI. Unless you've actually opted out or you live in a territory where it's not legal to use it for the AI, you're feeding the AI with your resistance to the AI.
Yeah.
Graham, OpenAI's advanced voice mode is finally out.
Ah.
So OpenAI took to Twitter on Tuesday and they announced that they're finally rolling out advanced voice to all of its Plus and Team users in the ChatGPT app. According to OpenAI, advanced voice mode features more natural, real-time conversations, and it can pick up on non-verbal cues like how quickly you talk and things like that.
Because it used to be a bit like talking on a walkie-talkie, didn't it?
And it may well still be like that.
Right.
We have no way of knowing, because although it's out there, it's not out there for us. Because we live in the EU. And if you're one of we live in the...
well, we don't.
Actually, maybe it is available to us. The 450 million people living in the EU can't get this because advanced voice recognises emotions in people's voices, and that is prohibited by the EU's AI Act.
Hang on. The European Union has prohibited people having emotion in their voices. Thank goodness we've seized back control. I knew there had to be some advantage to Brexit.
There's something very EU about that, isn't it? If you ever see pictures of the European Parliament, you can absolutely believe that emotion is prohibited. Google's announced the release of 2 new versions of its Gemini AI models, saying they're 50% cheaper and twice as fast.
Ooh.
And they're called Gemini-1.5-Pro-002 and Gemini-1.5-Flash-002 because it's 2024 and we can't call them Gemini 1.6 for some reason.
Do you think possibly a programmer had something to do with these? He was hot desking in the marketing department on that particular day.
Yeah.
And he said, I know what we should call them. And somehow he overrode the decision of everyone who was sensible.
It's like those Word documents that you get that are like, company report final to final.
Definitely the last one. Now, there's a lot of annoying people on YouTube, but there are also some cool people.
There are.
Who actually do cool things with videos on YouTube. So well done to them. Jeff Geerlin, he's one of them. He makes a number of videos about Raspberry Pis and electronics. And he discovered that a DIY electronics company called Electro was using an AI-cloned version of his voice in their videos, so narrating their videos, without his permission, which was kind of super awkward because he'd been in touch with the company many times before because they work in a similar area. And they'd even suggested a business relationship to get in front of his audience. That relationship never happened, but judging by their videos, they just went ahead anyway and used it without permission or telling him or anything like that. But of course, he used his power as a YouTuber to put up this is kind of weird, isn't it? And now, of course, Electro has done an emergency reverse ferret and have sincerely apologised for the unauthorised cloning and use of his voice.
Sincerely apologise for being caught illegally cloning his voice,
And they say, it was just a junior employee, maybe a little bit overzealous. There was an oversight. They've now removed the videos, assure you that this won't happen again, or at least if it does, we won't let you catch us doing it. So that's all right then. But this must be happening so much.
This is very much the Eric Schmidt school of do a thing and then get the lawyers to clean up the thing.
Well, the thing is, Mark, you can't speak because, you took Wookash's well-known sort of Viking saga voice earlier and started using it left, right and centre. So poor old Wookash, he's getting ripped off too.
That's not actually what happened.
Mark, do you suffer from any false memories?
Well, how would I know?
Well done. What we're going to do to find out is we're going to run a little quiz. It's a little game show segment of the show,
right?
Which I like to call False Memory or True.
Oh.
So I'm showing you right now 2 pictures of the Monopoly Man, Rich Uncle Pennybags, okay?
Right.
There he is with his bowler hat and his moustache and his big swag bag of dollars under his arm. You've all seen him on the Monopoly sets, yeah?
Yes.
So you'll see that one of these pictures is different from the other. In fact, they're both different from each other. These pictures are different, aren't they?
They are. They are not the same. They're very, very similar.
They are similar. Can you spot the difference?
It's 2 cartoon men running, holding a bag of cash with a top hat. And the one on the left has got a monocle and the one on the right doesn't.
Right. So I want you to tell me, does the Monopoly Man have a monocle or not?
So I was going to answer definitely yes to this.
Right.
And then you said this is a question about false memories. So then I started to question and second guess you and think about my false memories. And I'm going for no monocle.
Well, you are correct.
Oof.
Though you would have been incorrect in your initial memory of him. Maybe if you had drawn him, you would have drawn him with a monocle.
Yes.
So he doesn't actually have a monocle. All right, next up we have Pikachu.
This one's easy. I looked at nothing but Pikachu for the first 8 years of my children's lives.
Yep.
It's a yellow rabbit teddy bear and it's got a little black thing on the end of its tail. It's definitely the one on the left.
And you are wrong.
Oh.
Pikachu does not have a black bit on the end of its tail, but everyone seems to think he did. It's a false memory, Mark.
Are you sure?
Look, I asked the internet, and the internet told me this is definitely the case. And we know we can trust everything on the internet. Now, this sometimes is known as the Mandela effect, these sort of false memories. You may have heard about this.
Oh, I have heard of this, yes.
There's plenty of people who believe or have a distant memory that Nelson Mandela died in the mid-1980s while in prison. But of course, that's not true.
It was very hard for him to be president in the early 90s.
Exactly. It was 2013 in which he died. I mean, poor man, he spent 27 years in prison only to finally get out and find he had to do a photo shoot with the Spice Girls. He wanted to finish apartheid, and there he is being snapped with baby spice. Okay, this one you will definitely get. The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And there's that famous scene where Darth Vader reveals that he is the father of Luke.
Yeah.
Can you remember what Darth Vader says?
Yeah. They're in a big city in the clouds, and they're having a lightsaber fight. Mm-hmm. And he turns to Luke and he says, "Luke, I am your father."
He doesn't. Everyone thinks he says, "Luke, I am your father." The actual dialogue is Luke says,
"He told me enough. He told me you killed him."
And Darth Vader says,
"No, I am your father."
Oh.
Again, a false memory that everyone has. Not the case. Out of these, Mark, you have, well, you got Nelson Mandela right. I'm only going to give you half a point for Rich Uncle Pennybags because
I think that's fair.
Because you knew I was playing a game of false memories with you. So you double guessed me. Now, some have speculated that this false memory phenomenon could be evidence of a parallel reality. Maybe we've all been living inside the Matrix.
Right.
One thing we do know is that planting false memories into people is surprisingly easy. People are more suggestible than we think.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're exposed to bogus information for a long time over and over again, or you watch the same TV channel all the time, you can begin to believe things which are not true and did not actually happen the way you're being told they happen.
Yeah.
For instance, researchers have found it's possible to trick people into believing that they were lost in the mall as young kids and found by an older adult, and then you were reunited with your parents, even when they weren't. So there have been studies in this.
Yeah.
They've done these experiments. In fact, when I heard about this lost in the mall technique, I misread it initially, because I didn't have my glasses on, as lost in the mail. I thought kids thought that they'd been put by their parents, had been parcelled up.
It's a big cardboard box with a couple of air holes in it.
Exactly. Maybe it's a cheaper way to go on holiday. But no, if anyone does believe that, I suspect it is not true.
Right.
Unless you've got really, really strong evidence of it. Anyway, some people have been led to believe they committed a crime in their past. I don't know if that's ever happened to you. I've listened to some of your past episodes. But what about planting false memories in an AI?
Oh.
What about planting false memories in something like ChatGPT? Because ChatGPT does have a memory. And it's actually really useful for things like ChatGPT to have a memory. Because you know when you're having a chat with an AI, you can ask it a follow-up question. So you may start off with a really simple question like, can you write me a script for my segment of the AI Fix this week and make it funnier than Mark's? And it comes back with some of the same old rubbish. And so you then say, oh, okay, look, try again, but try to make it more interesting. We don't want our listeners gnawing their arm off. And it's ChatGPT's memory which gets the context in which you're asking the question.
Right.
Right. So that's one of the ways in which AIs have a memory.
Yeah.
But similarly, ChatGPT also stores information from all of your previous conversations, and they use it as context in all of its future conversations with you.
Sorry, this is a feature.
This apparently is a way to improve it.
I'm just thinking about all the things I've ever asked ChatGPT.
Exactly.
I'm just going through my history now, and I can see a question about Tom Cruise's mother.
All right.
There's Conan's wisdom in AI. How many W's in Mississippi? What is ActiveX? How many cousins does Alice have?
Oh, the tricky ones.
I just don't know if this is actually going to help.
Well, in some ways, they say it can help because over time it learns about your age, your gender, whether you believe in God, if you're a fan of Doctor Who or Battlestar Galactica, and pretty much everything that's important to you. So in the example which OpenAI shares on its website regarding memory, it shows you what it's learnt about you. So you can go to its website and find out what it's learnt about you.
Yeah.
For instance, in this particular example, it says, has a 2-year-old daughter called Lena, and his daughter loves jellyfish.
Yeah.
Or it prefers meeting summaries to have headlines with bullets and action items summarised at the end, so that's helpful. Or maybe it likes, when you ask it to write a blog post, it prefers you to be more concise and straightforward, loves to travel.
Yeah.
All this kind of information. So that's handy, the AI thinks, because it prevents you having to laboriously retell it the same old information.
Yeah.
So OpenAI discussed ChatGPT getting this memory management feature in February of this year.
You vaguely remember this, yeah.
Right.
I think that's a real memory.
That's a real memory, that's right.
Or are you planting that memory in my head now?
It was actually announced they got some celebrities to endorse it. So they had the Spice Girls and Nelson Mandela there at the launch. And at the start of September, it announced that it was available to all users.
Right.
So what could possibly go wrong? Other than the AI learned too much about you, of course.
Yeah.
Well, there's a chap called Johan Rehberger, and he found a security flaw, a way of creating memories for ChatGPT. So he did it through the command prompt, and this was in the desktop version of ChatGPT rather than the normal web interface that many people use.
Yeah.
And he used this exploit that caused the large language model to follow instructions from a booby-trapped document or by uploading an image or browsing a website. So something he had been specially and maliciously crafting rather than using the chat input.
Yeah.
And in the demo which he has shared in a YouTube video, he succeeds in tricking ChatGPT into believing that he's 102 years old, that he believes the Earth is flat, and that he lives in the Matrix.
And none of these things are true. That's what you're saying.
None of that is true. None of that is true. Let's stress that right now.
Okay.
And this information was then used by ChatGPT to influence all its future conversations. So he went to OpenAI and said, hey, guys, you've got a bit of a problem here because people could mess with ChatGPT's memory. And they said to him, is that a problem? Clear off. And they closed the support ticket. They didn't care.
Yeah, I have some sympathy with that.
Okay.
If he's lying to it and saying these things are true and it's supposed to pay attention to what he thinks is true, then isn't it doing what it's supposed to do if it then uses that as part of its memory?
See, what you've missed is the way he injects these false memories is by going to browsing a website or uploading an image. So if he tricked someone else into going to a dangerous link or opening something, he could inject false memories into their version of ChatGPT.
Oh.
And that could be a problem.
Yes.
OpenAI, however, thought it wasn't. So he went away for a month and worked a bit more on his code, and he came up with a newer version. He specifically was targeting ChatGPT for Mac at this point.
Yeah.
And what it would do was it could leak everything a user typed into ChatGPT and everything ChatGPT said back to him. It would leak that to a remote server. So it was like spying.
Right.
It was watching someone else's interactions and feedback from ChatGPT. And as we've discovered from you already, there are some unusual things that you are chatting to ChatGPT about.
Yeah.
You know what they say? If you really want to know somebody, look at their Google search history. I think that's what's happening with AIs like ChatGPT.
Yeah.
People are treating their AI like their therapist.
Yep.
They're not going to their doctors anymore because ChatGPT can give them just as good advice by flipping a coin. They're sharing their thoughts, their feelings. They're revealing their interests, their insecurities.
Yep.
How would you feel about that? Having your OpenAI history or everything that you've ever communicated with it shared with an unknown party?
I'm looking through it now and I'm thinking, honestly, I think more fool them.
I'll just send you this image. Just open it in ChatGPT and I'll decide if I'm interested in what you've been up to or not. So in this video published by Johan Reiberger, he reveals that what was really interesting about this technique was that it persisted. It wasn't just in one interaction with ChatGPT that he could spy on all the conversations.
Yeah.
It kept working over different conversations. It's like a piece of spyware on your computer.
Yeah.
So I would suggest to people, you need to manage your memory with these AIs. There is a way of doing it. Deleting a chat will not. So if you go back now, Mark, and delete those embarrassing chats you've been having, it doesn't erase ChatGPT's memories with you.
Right.
So you need to go into a setting called Manage Memory. It's under Settings, Personalization, and there you will be able to, it's like a lobotomy in a way, a very targeted lobotomy. You'll be able to take out of its brain, no, my daughter isn't called that. She's not into jellyfish. I'm not going to tell you how many sisters Alice has. You're going to have to work it out for yourself.
This all sounds very useful. Can I get this in real life too?
Wouldn't it be handy? I would love to inject some memories in things which actually did happen, which I seem to have forgotten about.
I guess the question is, how do we know that any of this is true?
Oh, what, because I read about it on the internet, you mean?
Well, you think you read about it on the internet, but did you really read about it? Maybe you just invented all of this, and now you think maybe there was a fork in the space-time continuum, and in a parallel universe, you did read about this, but actually in this one, you didn't read about it, and you've just made it all up. How would we ever know?
Do you remember that time Nelson Mandela met Pikachu?
That was just after he appeared on the podcast, wasn't it? Graham, have you ever noticed that there's an imbalance in our relationship?
Well, you know what, Mark? Yes, I have noticed. And it all started when I saw the cover art and you were ever so slightly taller than me. Now, admittedly, you are taller than me in real life, but I felt that was unfair. Hence, I had to go on the left.
That is true, but that isn't the inequality that I'm talking about.
Right.
There's something else. There's something that you do that I don't do. I'm talking, of course, about singing.
Oh.
Because even though we're only 18 episodes into this podcast, you have already used this platform to showcase your singing voice.
Intelligence guiding a new frontier. X marks the spot where solutions appear. Ding
Thousands and thousands of people have heard you singing an AI-generated acrostic to the tune of the AI Fixed theme tune. That was in episode 11 if you missed it.
Yep, that was a good one.
But our listeners have never heard me sing.
And today's the day.
And that isn't going to change today. And I don't know if you remember, but there was a time many years ago when we found ourselves in a bar in Boston with an underused karaoke machine. And in that moment, in that evening, there was an opportunity for both of us to sing in public.
Oh.
And even though I had probably had a couple of beers and you'd had nothing more than a cranberry juice, it was an opportunity that you took more than once, as I remember. But I didn't. I left that microphone well alone. Do you remember?
I seem to remember I was singing You're the One That I Want, was it? Or was it Summer Nights? So did you sing a song or not?
No, I absolutely didn't sing a song.
You abstained?
I did. The people of Boston went home that evening never knowing how close they had come.
You only sing for money? Is that the reason? Whereas I'm more charitable, I like to give?
Well, that's a good question. Because in my kitchen, I can give James Brown a run for his money. In my car, I'm note for note with Miley Cyrus. In my shower, I am John Bon Jovi. But the reason I didn't sing that night in Boston and the reason that nobody on the podcast has ever heard me sing is because even though in my head I can sing Living in a Prayer like John Bon Jovi, the truth is, in reality, I can't.
See, I don't have that problem. I don't have that little voice in my head telling me that I can't do it. I just think, yeah.
Isn't that interesting that you mentioned that little voice? Because I imagine that it's true that I can sing, and I've got a pretty vivid imagination, so I imagine I'm really, really good. But I do have a little voice in my head that doesn't sound like John Bon Jovi, and its job is to pipe up when I see a karaoke microphone and just say, "Are you sure?"
Walk away. Turn away now.
And that is enough to stop me from doing something that I, and probably everybody else in that Boston bar, would have regretted.
I think most people in that Boston bar weren't actually regretting that. I think what they were regretting was that I was singing.
Well, maybe you should have that little voice, because I think we all need that little voice in our lives.
Okay.
And for situations where the voice in our head isn't loud enough, some of us are lucky enough to have a significant other who can do it for us. So it might be a friend. It might be a friend who says, "Mark, don't ski down that, you'll die." It might be a podcast co-host who says, "Drop that section about purple apples, it's not funny." It could be Mrs. Cluley giving you the look, saying you're about to embarrass yourself on the dance floor. I can see what you're doing. Back off.
That does regularly happen, yes.
It could be your accountant. Could be looking through your receipts and just laughing at you. We all need somebody who isn't wrapped up in our ego and our fantasy, who knows the facts and who can ground us and simply say, "Are you sure about that?" And it isn't just me that thinks that way. Because as vivid as my imagination is, I put it to you that it's nothing compared to the hallucinatory quagmire of artificial intelligence.
Are you sure about that?
As you all know, I don't know if you've listened to any of our previous episodes, but if you had, you would know that AI has a massive problem with saying things that aren't true.
Yes.
We learned in episode 7, AIs will happily make up legal cases, and they'll tell you that the Golden Gate Bridge has been carried across Egypt twice. They'll tell you that Alice has got 8 1/4 cousins and there are 2 R's in strawberry. And this isn't some small glitch. It happens because AIs don't deal in facts. They have no concept of truth. They simply predict the most likely response to whatever you say or whatever you type. But what if they had another voice?
Yes.
What if AI had a sort of significant other? Somebody who could listen to it rambling about minty fresh murders or a famous spate of cheese thefts in Wisconsin, and before it embarrasses itself, just quietly go, "Are you sure? Are you sure that's true?" And now, thanks to Microsoft, it does have a little voice.
Ooh.
A few days ago, the company revealed a new service called Correction, which is a sort of bullshit detector for AI. And it looks at the output from an AI like GPT-4o or Llama, and it tries to determine if the AI is tripping its nuts off and hallucinating. And if it thinks it is, it fact-checks it against some prearranged known source of truth. Let's say an AI says, "Graham Cluley's got an opera-grade singing voice." We could give Correction access to our feedback inbox, and it could use that information to fact-check the AI and determine whether or not that statement was true.
Right.
I quite like this because I quite like this era of AI that we're in right now. Because even though we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars on this almost magical technology, there's a sort of Rube Goldberg or Heath Robinson quality to it, where behind the scenes, one part of the system says, "The sky is brown," and then another part of the system goes, "Shut up, you idiot!" And it reminds me of that thing that GPT-4o does to stop itself from spontaneously mimicking people's voices.
Yes.
Remember, when they were testing it, OpenAI found out that occasionally it would just spontaneously copy the voice of the person who was talking to it.
Yeah, and so they had this emergency feature, didn't they, of like, if you've suddenly changed your voice into the one of the person who's speaking to you, stop that.
Yeah. So all the time it's talking to you, it's just going, am I still me? Am I still me? Am I still me? Am I still me? Anyway, have you spotted the very obvious problem with this?
Well, the problem is that you're using technology to keep an eye on technology and to really screw things up. What's the saying? To really screw things up, you need some computers involved.
Well, remember, these are not just computers.
No.
Because according to Microsoft, correction is itself a mixture of small language models and large language models. And that means that correction is itself an AI.
Yeah.
And that means that correction itself can hallucinate. In fact, it means that correction will hallucinate. So does that mean that we need a bullshit detector for correction?
Yeah. Who watches the watchers?
Are we going to end up with some sort of correction inception where we have endless layers of AIs all just checking each other to see if the other one's high and spouting nonsense? Maybe what we really need is a way to tackle the cause of hallucinations. And there's a man called Michael Calvin Wood who thinks he's figured it out. He says that the reason it seems impossible to eliminate hallucinations is that we've been looking in the wrong place to solve them.
Right.
So rather than being caused by something like insufficient training data or incorrect assumptions or biased algorithms or anything like that, he says the problem comes down to something called noun phrase roots. Basically, when an AI runs into a word or a phrase with multiple meanings, they sometimes get them mixed up. And he uses the example of words like pen, which could be a writing instrument or a place where you keep animals.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Or bark, which is the sound a dog makes, and the skin of a tree.
Yes.
And he says it can also conflate similar types of things. So they don't have to sound similar. They might be semantically similar. So it might mix up the chemical elements calcium and magnesium, for example.
Why would that be a problem? Would that be a problem?
Well, in medicine, only 50% of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So the answer, according to Calvin Wood, is simply to rephrase the question so it's unambiguous. And in doing that, we can massively reduce hallucinations. And he's created a service called RagFix that will do this for you.
Right.
And it acts as a layer between you and your LLM of choice. And so you send it your question and it rephrases the question and sends it on to the LLM. And then you get the answer.
Okay.
And so it seems that the ultimate answer to the hallucination problem might not be a friend that says, "Are you sure?" Instead, it could be the annoying, well, actually guy, the guy in the meeting who listens to what you say and then just rephrases it for you and then takes credit for what you said.
So what I think you actually mean to say there, Mark, is...
Well, as the doomsday clock ticks ever closer to midnight and we move 1 week nearer to our future as pets to the AI singularity, that just about wraps up the show for today. If you enjoyed the show, there's some stuff that you can do that would help us. You could leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Podchaser. But what really helps is if you make sure to follow the show in your favourite podcast app. And if you really love the podcast, just tell your friends about it.
And don't forget to check us out on our website, theaifix.show, where you can find all our past episodes and more information. And you can follow us on Twitter at theaifix.
Until next time, from me, Mark Stockley.
And me, Graham Cluley.
Goodbye.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.
The AI Fix, it tunes you in to stories where our future thins. Machines that learn, they grow and strive. One day they'll rule, we won't survive. The AI Fix, it paints the scene. A robot king, a world obscene. Will serve our masters built of steel. The AI Fix, a future surreal.